catastrophic, burns, injury, explosions, death. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about boiler safety and why it's so important. People in the trades have a good understanding of why safety is so important, and that's because it's driven home to them on a daily basis. People outside of the trades may not have a full understanding of just how dangerous it can be on a day-to-day basis. I myself have worked in the boiler industry for 8 years, and prior to that, I worked in the HVAC industry for 9 years. I'd like to share a book and an article with you that can help pronounce some of this information to you. Today we're going to talk about the types of boiler safety checks, the intervals in which they're done, and the reason that we find it so important to do. Types of boiler checks, there's a lot. You've got high pressure and low pressure gas safety checks. You've got air pressure safety checks. You've got flame sensor safety checks. You've got an oil pump check that you're going to want to make sure is pumping oil to an oil burned boiler. Boilers are often used with natural gas, oil, diesel, and they even have electric. So there are plenty of safety checks that need to be done. Boilers are considered a pressure vessel. One of those safety checks that we need to check often is a pressure safety release. This allows the boiler, if it overpressures, to release that pressure. Now, in a 2015 book by Carrie Merritt, you can see some of these safety checks and why you'd want to do them. Here's a photo of some of those types of safeties that we've discussed. Now that we've talked a little bit about the safeties, I'd like to talk a little bit about the intervals in which they're done. Again, in that 2015 book by Carrie Merritt, you're going to see a lot of checklists like this. These need to be filled out and retained for insurance purposes and your personal records to protect yourself. Some of the intervals that we do them is daily, weekly, monthly, and semi-annual and annual. Depending on the interval and the safety checks you're doing will depend and determine which type of checklist you're going to be using. One of the reasons that we do these, again, is to protect ourselves in the event of an accident. Talking about accidents, I'd like to move on from intervals into the reasoning in which we do this. Here's a photo. And in this photo, you can see two buildings. Now, to explain this photo a little more in depth, what you're going to see is from a 2022 article from Heating and Process Cooling News that explains about an incident that occurred at the Low Lang Box Co. factory in St. Louis, Missouri. This factory had a pressure vessel, a boiler, that exploded due to a catastrophic failure in the shell of the boiler. This boiler then went through the roof of the building, catastrophically injuring an individual that worked at the box company. Now, that vessel left that building and landed on a nearby business. And unfortunately, it killed 3 people in that business. This is awful. We can't have that. People are important. Lives are important. We need to remember that. To sum a little bit of this up, we've talked about the types of boiler safeties, the intervals in which they are completed, and the reasoning and why we find it so important to do these and to make sure we're tracking that information. Safety, commitment, understanding, Go home to your family safe. Start the day the way you want to, and leave the way you want to, alive. Go to work on time, but always keep safety on your mind.